Okay, we all know The Simpsons is a classic in American television and has become a major part of pop culture. The quotable quotes, the unique characters, the hilarious storylines. We all know the brilliance of The Simpsons. Well, did you know that The Simpsons are also psychic? What?
Oh, that's cute.
The happy squirrel.
That's bad?
Possibly.
Yes, friends, we're convinced The Simpsons had the power to predict the hellhole that is 2020, and we're here today to tell you why. As we know, this year has been anything but predictable, and it definitely feels like we're in this weird dream sequence. But The Simpsons predicted this would happen, and it's scary how much they got right. Before we dive into the mysteries and wonders of their psychic ways, go ahead and click subscribe and ring that notification bell so that you'll never miss out on our future videos. And give this video a thumbs up because we're about to blow your mind. Here we go! Okay, we'll start with the jaw-dropping but most obvious prediction that, in all of its creepy ways, came completely true. In an episode from 2000, the show takes us into the future when Lisa has become president, the first female president. Well, here we are 20 years later and we still haven't had a female president, so we kind of wish they had gotten that part right too. Well, Lisa talks about accruing all kinds of stressful issues from the previous president, none other than President Trump himself. Of all the people, of all the celebrities, all the situations, they chose Trump for the joke, clearly thinking it was one of the wildest things they could possibly think of at the time. Or was it? Did the magical creators of The Simpsons actually know that Trump would go on to be the actual president? Crazy. When the creators were asked about it, they said they couldn't quite remember who suggested the line be used. Sure, keep telling the world that. We know you're psychic. It's fine. Obviously, we're in the middle of a global pandemic, COVID-19. If the nature of the pandemic has not affected you in any way, then you're not of this world. Kind of like the writers on The Simpsons. Mystical creatures, all of you. So we're obviously experiencing this whole situation with a killer virus that has taken over the earth, having to stay at home, wear masks, only have access to outdoor events, and socially distancing. It's a concept we've all had to adapt to very, very quickly and with very little warning. But friends, we would argue that we did have a warning. In season 4, the show predicts a killer flu called Osaka flu, originating in Osaka, Japan, and taking over the world. It all started with a Japanese factory worker coughing into a package, which begins the spread of the virus. Well, just the fact that the show features a global and deadly pandemic is enough to already blow our minds. Sure, we've seen movies do the same thing, but knowing what we know about the psychic abilities within The Simpsons, we should have paid closer attention at the time. Anyway, so the town freaks out and tries to find a cure, accidentally knocking over a crate full of killer bees. Okay, does anyone remember the murder hornet situation that happened earlier this year? Well, a species of murderous hornets, true to their name, had been lying latent and only found in certain parts of Asia, and was randomly discovered in the American Pacific Northwest shortly after the pandemic became widespread. Yeah, so you tell me. How is it not eerie that the global pandemic, followed by the killer bees on the loose as portrayed on the show, is so parallel to real life now as we know it? In the same episode, as well as another in the series, we see controversial statues being torn down as people finally admit the dark history of certain figureheads that are still celebrated. As we know, 2020 has incited mass protests on behalf of social justice and civil rights, and many statues have either been torn down or removed by local officials as a result of the protests. The social change and evolution of thought is extremely important, and the situation in the show is extremely different than the reality of our world. But again, what are the freaking odds that there would be a wrongful arrest, riots, and the tearing down of statues in the show? And such a similar course of events in real life? I mean, do you think it's just a coincidence, or do you think we're dealing with some mystical creatures from another dimension, aka the writers of the show? Definitely let us know in the comments. Another effect of the pandemic, as we know, is the rise of video conferencing, especially Zoom. I don't know about you, but I'm kinda glad I get to be a homebody and not attend my weird cousin's birthday party with his weird friends. But anyway, this is not about me, so I'm gonna focus. Yes, video conferencing. It has skyrocketed, since we still have to be able to work from home or interact with family and friends for momentous occasions. Yes, I have been to a Zoom wedding or two. Well, it is relatively new technology. It's so hard to keep track of what was and wasn't around in certain time periods since technology changes so quickly every day. But we can assure you, in 1995, video conferencing was not around. But of course, in The Simpsons it was. They do a little scene in the future after Lisa's wedding in which there's a screen that allows Lisa and her mom to talk. Well, again, that didn't exist yet. And although The Simpsons often played around with futuristic ideas of technology that seemed out of this world, the specific rise of video conferencing due to the pandemic is too hard to ignore. And it definitely feels like this 1995 scene was yet another prediction for 2020. Okay, so where are my Star Wars fans at? Well, if you're a Star Wars fan, then you've probably heard of or have been watching The Mandalorian. Can we just talk for 1 second about how freaking cute Baby Yoda is?
He's so fluffy, I'm gonna die!
It's unbelievable. Kind of like how unbelievable it is how many 2020 predictions The Simpsons got right. Huh. Okay, so The Mandalorian pays homage to many cult classic themes in pop culture, like a Western-style hero like that from the Dollars trilogy. Well, many people don't know this, but the Dollars trilogy, as well as Star Wars, were both inspired by Japanese filmmaker Akira Kurosawa. So in The Simpsons, we see a parody of George Lucas, Randall Curtis, who decides to go back to his roots, in which he literally says, "I'm going back to my roots, plots and characters lifted from westerns and samurai films." Well, The Mandalorian is exactly that, and didn't appear on our screens until 2019, which is too weird of a coincidence to actually be a coincidence. From Kurosawa's films to westerns like the Dollars trilogy to Star Wars and The Mandalorian, the moment in the show was definitely a super scary psychic prediction on the part of The Simpsons writers. But why are we even surprised? I mean, they've legitimately gotten so many things scarily accurate that what's one more on the list? Yes, we're fascinated by it, but we wish they would just come out and tell us that they're actually ancient mythical creatures who have been trying to warn us about the hurdles of 2020 for like 30 years. Wouldn't it have been great if we heeded the warnings back then and planned for all of this crazy stuff? Well, for now, we're just gonna have to see what ridiculous events are next for us this year. Or maybe we go back and watch The Simpsons more carefully, looking for clues. Anyway, fellow Simpsons fans, we could barely believe what we were seeing and hearing, but sure enough, there were many predictions throughout the seasons of The Simpsons that actually came true in 2020. What do you think about the predictions, and did you find some other ones that solidify the fact that everyone who worked on The Simpsons is secretly psychic? Leave us a comment below. As usual, be sure to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell as we bring you more juicy info, gossip, and speculation about the shows and stars you know and love. Until next time!